While spending the weekend with my girlfriend of almost 4 years, something seemed off. She felt distant and quiet. I asked her what was wrong, and after some convincing, she told me that she wasn't sure that she loved me like she used to. She enjoyed being with me when I was there, but when we were apart, she didn't miss me like she used to. I was really taken aback by this. I'd always felt so secure in our relationship, and for a while now, I'd felt like we should be looking at taking next steps like buying a home together and considering marriage. I asked her if there was something that I had done. She said no. I asked her if there was someone else, and she replied no again. I asked her how long she'd been feeling like this, and she told me it had been a few weeks, which would put it around the time when we went on vacation together. I decided to go. I needed some time to process what she'd just told me. She asked me to stay and take a walk with her. I agreed and eventually spent most of the day with her, and we went to get lunch. The day was pretty tense, but at times there were breaks from the bleak mood. I told her some silly joke about a car made of pasta, and she said that when I say things like that, it makes her think she loves me. This was less comforting than perhaps she imagined. When we got back to her place, she admitted that she had developed feelings for a guy at work. She said that what she'd told me before was a lie, and that her friend had told her to say that after she discussed it with her. I asked her who it was, but she said I wouldn't know him. I pressed for a name, and she told me it was Ted, not his real name. She was surprised that I was then able to give his last name and job title. I'd seen, a few months ago, that he'd followed her on a language learning app where she's been learning his first language, and he's been learning hers. I realized he was a guy from work, but I got a bad feeling about it when I noticed that she talked all about her colleagues but almost never mentioned this guy, hence the research on my part. But at the time, I thought the worst case scenario was that this was a guy who was interested in her, but I still trusted her completely. She told me that there had been nothing physical or intimacy between them, but she was certain he felt the same way. I tried to be as understanding as I could. I acknowledged that it's normal to experience attraction to other people. I tried to frame it as us against this problem, and encouraged her to come up with a solution that she was comfortable with. We talked about her having a conversation with him to set boundaries and distance herself from him. But then I realized I was acting under the impression that she wanted to choose us over him. When I pressed her a little, she told me she still loved me and felt like she would regret leaving me, but she still hadn't made up her mind. This is when I realized this isn't the us problem I thought it was, because she's still not certain she wants there to be an us. She tried to get me to stay, but after finding out that our relationship of 4 years was being weighed against this guy with no clear winner, I did not want to be around her, so I left. She texted me that she loved me and that she was sorry for hurting me. I didn't know what I could say back, so I didn't respond. I know that right now there's nothing I can do and that the choice is hers to make. But in many ways, it doesn't feel like there's a positive outcome here for me. If she chooses me, my trust in her is still going to be shattered. She says she's going to talk to him, and I guess based on that, she'll tell me what she decides. Can a relationship get past something like this if we try to make it work? And if so, how do we rebuild trust and move forward together after such a betrayal? I'm feeling completely betrayed and devalued, and I'm unsure how to navigate this situation. Should I even consider trying to make this work, or is it better to move on? What steps should I take next? Now for an update. Thank you all for your advice. I'm genuinely a little amazed at how many people have shared their thoughts. I took the route that I knew deep down was the only one available to me. I told her I was coming to collect my things. She could be there to talk if she wanted. Otherwise, I'd let myself in and drop off my key afterwards. I wrote down what I wanted to say, knowing that I could call her and explain over the phone if she chose not to be there. In the end, she wasn't home but was in the park around the corner, so I gathered up my belongings from her place and went to break up with her in person. I used quite a few of the points you all made about this situation not being a little slip-up, that this was a series of repeated choices on her part, and that I didn't deserve to be anyone's second best. I couldn't respect myself if I didn't walk away now. Honestly, she was in pieces. It was horrible seeing her like that. She asked me to stay and to forgive her, but how could I? I walked away with my head held high and with no regrets about my choices today. Thanks for the relationship advice. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I have worked with a lot of married couples and most cheat with coworkers. I personally would end it. I know it hurts and it's easy to say, but the trust is gone. Unless she quits her job, you are always going to wonder, and then at a new job, will there be another guy? She doesn't respect you and you no longer trust her. That's the foundation of a relationship, respect and trust. You're getting older and you shouldn't waste your time on someone who thinks you might be second best. You deserve to be the first and only choice, and you will be for someone, but you won't if you stay. Comment 2. Be grateful that you dodged the bullet before you got married. She literally is choosing him over your 4-year relationship. What is she going to talk to him about? That she wants him, and if he says no, who is she going to come back to? The grass is always greener on the other side. She is going to regret her choice for sure. Don't wait for her to choose you, as it shouldn't have even come to that. Just leave her and move on with someone better and loyal. Now for the update. 2 days after the breakup, I focused on packing my stuff from my ex-girlfriend's place. Not gonna lie, it felt like a freaking weight was being lifted off my shoulders. That Saturday morning, I was just vibing to some tunes, going through my stuff, and starting to feel a little better, you know? That's when I got a text from her asking if we could talk to clear the air. Ugh. I thought about just ghosting her, but I figured I might as well meet up somewhere. So we agreed to meet at a local diner. At the diner, she seemed all anxious and fidgety, like a kid who just stole a cookie. Seriously, she couldn't even look me in the eyes. The first thing she did was apologize for everything and said she made a mistake. I listened, but man, I felt zero urge to take her back. I was firm in my decision, like this was a business meeting or something. After a few minutes of her rambling, she started talking about a friend who was there for her during her little rough patch. I was like, oh, here we go. I immediately knew that friend was Ted, the dude she had feelings for. I asked her if they were still in touch, and she hesitated like she was trying to solve a math problem. She finally said they were just friends now. Oh, really? Just friends? Sure, Jan. Then she tried to justify her actions during our relationship. I had to remind her that she was the one who was emotionally unavailable and that it kinda led to our breakup. She insisted it was complicated and that she needed more time to figure things out. I told her it was way too late for that, and I stood up to leave. As I was walking out, she grabbed my arm and begged me to stay a little longer. I pulled away like she was a hot stove and walked out. No thanks. A few days later, I got a message from a mutual friend about an upcoming family gathering for my parents' anniversary. The struggle was real, though. I debated whether or not to attend, knowing my ex would probably be there. But in the end, I decided to go and show everyone that I was moving forward. At the gathering, I found my family and friends chatting and enjoying the celebration. It felt good to be around people who cared about me. I spotted my ex sitting at a table with Ted, laughing like they were the freaking stars of a rom-com. My brother Jake introduced me to some of his friends who had just arrived, and we hit it off over drinks. They were a good distraction from all the drama. At one point, I noticed my ex glaring at me from across the room. I tried to ignore it, but you know how it is. Glares can be like daggers. As the night went on, I found myself in a group game, just enjoying the laughter and company. My ex came up to me later, trying to make small talk, but I kept it super brief. She mentioned her plans for a vacation with friends, but totally left out Ted's name. I replied that I had plans too, just a hint that I was starting a new chapter in my life. After a while, I decided to leave the gathering. No need to overstay my welcome. The next day, I saw a post on social media showing my ex and Ted together at a bar. The photo was tagged with a caption about finding love. I rolled my eyes so hard, I almost went blind. To keep the good vibes going, I took a photo of myself enjoying a day out with friends and posted it later. A few days after that, I learned through some mutual acquaintances that Ted and my ex were now officially dating. How cute. I even got a message from a new acquaintance asking if I wanted to hang out soon. I agreed, ready to make some new memories. Honestly, I just feel like I'm on a roller coaster ride of emotions, but in a good way, you know? Like my heart's still a bit bruised, but I'm not letting that stop me. I'm just excited to meet new people and see where life takes me next. Yeah, my ex might have moved on, but so have I, and I'm actually kind of stoked about it. So, here's to new adventures and good vibes. Wish me luck. Edit. After this encounter, my ex sent me a long message apologizing again and asking if we could start over. I ignored it. I also received several messages from mutual friends about how my ex was struggling to move on. I reassured them I was fine and focused on new experiences. Am I the idiot for telling my wife I don't want her friend Josh around our family anymore? To add, it's over. I asked for help, advice, and a fair number of you launched an attack on me. To those of you that did, you deserve what I have gone through. To the rest of you, thank you, and please wish me luck in court. What would you do in this situation? Am I being overly sensitive, or is my wife being ignorant of her rude friend? My wife, 39 years old, and youngest daughter were at lunch when an old friend, Josh, 39 years old, of my wife showed up at the restaurant where they were eating. She said hi to him while he ordered, caught up briefly, then she sat down with our 10-year-old. She says he came over after he ordered and proceeded to sit and eat with them. I've had a personal problem with him for nearly 20 years because of how he has treated me throughout our relationship. Ignoring me in conversation, will not acknowledge that I am even present, but always being fun and very friendly with her. I've operated under her request that I don't start problems for her, whether with friends or family. I have respected her wishes there, with him, others, and her family. Even when they break her heart, she has wanted me to stay out. I have. She didn't tell me about the encounter with him. The encounter was insignificant to her, but meant enough to her for it to cause her to question whether I would be upset. So she told me a few days later. I had been awake for less than 5 minutes. She was acting strangely, and before she even said hi or good morning, she immediately went into, I don't want it to be a thing. There wasn't anything to it. I just wanted to let you know that we had lunch with Josh. She then explained what that meant, just as I explained above. I processed it for a little while and then realized that it was affecting me very poorly mentally, and that I was not able to function for the things that I needed to do in the morning because I was so distracted by it. So I told her how I was feeling and what it made me feel like to have another man that I don't like and don't approve of having lunch with my wife and my daughter without my knowledge and have it forgotten and then delivered the way it was. It was really odd and felt less genuine than she normally is in awkward situations with me. She was immediately defensive. Not curious, not apologetic, not confused, defensive. Flags are going up everywhere for me. What really was happening? We got into a very long argument about how he makes me feel. Essentially, my view of his behavior towards me was incorrect, wrong. He's just awkward in social situations, she said. But it's only towards me. He will talk and joke and listen to anyone else, but me. 20 years, and he's still just awkward, she says. Not awkward enough to not sit and talk to my daughter, though. So I defined a boundary. I don't want anyone that I feel disrespected by coming around my family behind my back. If I feel disrespected by someone, I want to address it and resolve it. If there can be no resolution, then they should go away. Forever. They don't need to be part of our life. She obviously doesn't agree, but she also refused to try to resolve the situation between him and me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I wouldn't have a friend like him in my life, and neither would my husband, to be quite honest. Disrespecting my spouse is disrespecting me, and I stand by that. Nothing needs to be resolved here. I'm not generally one to say there's something questionable between the two of them, but there doesn't need to be something questionable for this to not be okay. Your problem really isn't with him, it's with your wife. Resolve that. Edit. I still stand by my original comment, but I realize that it is based on the fact that both my husband and I are very level-headed people, and we know that if the other one doesn't like someone, there's a reason for that. Your edit and your responses really make you sound a bit unhinged, and I suppose I wouldn't have a friend like him, but I also wouldn't have a spouse like you who has to be told constantly not to get into trouble with all her friends and family. Good luck with the divorce. I genuinely wish you both the best, and I encourage you to engage in some introspection. Comment 2. One of my girlfriend's best friends is like this too. He's certainly not into her in that way. He's gay, but whenever he comes to visit us, he makes me feel like a guest or an outsider. If I ever address him directly, he directs his responses towards my girlfriend. When we're all together, it seems like he only reacts to her. I don't get in the way because they've known each other since high school. But where I drew the line was when he was visiting our town and asked if he could stay with us. I told my girlfriend I'd give it one last chance. But no, the same things mentioned above would happen. And whenever I was talking, he'd stare off and really wait for me to finish before just talking about something entirely unrelated to my girlfriend. But on the bright side, she acknowledged his odd behavior and agreed that he wouldn't be allowed to stay with us anymore. Screw off, Lawrence. Now for the update. I'm not sure what to do with my wife after she invited my rival over for dinner. A week after the argument, I went to my daughter's birthday party at a local community center. The vibe was off, even more so because I was still bothered by the whole thing with my wife and Josh. My wife had insisted on inviting Josh and his partner, saying they were family friends. I reluctantly agreed, even though I was still uneasy about Josh being there. I never liked that guy. He knew I didn't, but he always acted like everyone was his buddy except me. The guy was just a jerk. Anyway, during the party, he showed up with a huge smile, acting overly friendly with everyone, as usual, except me, of course. I couldn't even get a nod from the guy. Meanwhile, my wife was laughing and chatting with him while I stood awkwardly on the sidelines like an idiot. At one point, Josh suggested a game that involved everyone pairing up, which made me feel even more isolated. My daughter excitedly pulled me into the game, but I felt totally out of place with Josh nearby. After the game, while the kids played, I confronted my wife about Josh's behavior. She just dismissed my concerns again, saying he just wanted to be friendly. Seriously? The guy can't even look me in the eye, and she thinks he wants to be friendly? I saw him whispering to her, and I felt a surge of frustration. I approached them, and he immediately stopped talking, looking guilty as hell. I asked my wife what they were discussing, but she shrugged it off as nothing important. The party ended with a cake-cutting moment, and everyone cheered when my daughter blew out her candles. I couldn't help but notice Josh snapping photos of her, which felt really intrusive. After the party, my wife suggested we all go out for ice cream, including Josh and his partner. I felt a knot in my stomach thinking about spending more time with him, but I went along with it. At the ice cream shop, he made jokes and acted like nothing was wrong, which just irritated me even more. My daughter asked if Josh could come to her soccer game the following weekend. I hesitated but didn't want to upset my daughter, so I reluctantly agreed. Later that night, I found my wife texting Josh while I was trying to watch a movie. I asked her who she was texting, and she snapped at me, saying it was none of my business. The next day, I confronted her again, leading to another heated exchange. She accused me of being controlling and not trusting her judgment. We argued about boundaries, and I reiterated my discomfort with Josh. Eventually, she stormed out of the house, saying she needed space. A few days later, she called me, asking to meet at a nearby diner. At the diner, she revealed she had invited Josh to our home for dinner that weekend. I felt totally blindsided and expressed my disapproval, but she insisted it was a family matter. Tensions escalated when she said I was being unreasonable, which just deepened our rift. The dinner with Josh went ahead, and the atmosphere was uncomfortable, filled with forced smiles. After dinner, Josh made a comment about how I needed to lighten up, which ignited a fight. I finally snapped and told him to leave, leading to a chaotic scene. My wife was furious, accusing me of ruining the evening and pushing Josh away. I packed some things and left for the night, feeling like I had no place there anymore. A few days later, my wife informed me she was meeting with Josh to clear the air. To answer a few questions, my daughter is unaware of the tension between us. Josh's partner and my wife are close friends. I don't have issues with my wife's friends, only Josh. Am I the idiot for suggesting an open relationship after my wife cheated and then finding out she still talks to the other guy? My wife of 10 years and I have a 2-year-old together. My daughter is amazing. My wife met another dad at a community kids playgroup about 4 or 5 months ago. I recall when they first met, she mentioned that this socially awkward guy chatted with her at the playgroup. She really thought he was weird. The following week, she mentioned he added her on Instagram and wanted to set up a play date with our kids. They are both the same age. I really thought nothing of it because 1, I never thought she would cheat on me, and 2, she said he was really weird. About another month went by with me being oblivious and noticing nothing. Anyway, my wife left to visit her parents for a month with our daughter. When she came back, she was on her phone a lot. I noticed on the first day she was really acting weird, hiding her phone from me, texting someone, etc. I ended up taking her phone and reading messages between her and this guy. The messages were set to vanish, so I didn't see a lot. What I did see were things like, "I love you," and some other stuff. She denied it all for about 5 minutes, but then gave in. Basically, they met 4 times or so in public places without the kids. She would tell me she was going shopping or for dinner with friends. I also saw on the GPS for the car where they went and for how long. Some intimacy stuff happened, kissing, and some more stuff. No intimacy. So it's been about a month or 2 since all of that. She blocked him on Instagram, but then unblocked him again. I just found out she has been video chatting him again and sending some non-nude nudes. Now, in her defense, I mentioned something about an open relationship, but what I really wanted was for her to say no and choose me. After I called her out on it again, she said her final goodbye to him over a 45-minute conversation on Instagram at midnight while I slept. Well, she didn't actually block him, just said goodbye. So he direct messaged her this morning and she tells me. I ask why she hasn't blocked him. She says, "I just did. I direct messaged him and said 2 sentences. 1, stop messaging my wife. 2, we don't want any more explicit pictures. I leave for work." She unblocks him and says, "Sorry, my husband is acting crazy, but you need to stop talking with him. I'm conflicted because of my daughter. Any advice on how to proceed?" She says she's officially done with this guy. He lives 10 minutes away from us. I don't want to ruin my daughter's life because of these 2. Now for an update. Thanks everyone. I appreciate all of your comments. They really help knock some sense into me. I'm going to be moving temporarily into my parents' place until I figure out my next move. I know she's going to continue to beg me to come back and tell me everything I want to hear. When I hear her now, though, I just think about all of the things you have all said. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. She keeps lying and engaging with him. You deserve better. She just met this guy and she's already telling him, "I love you." Please, she's in lust. And this guy is going to drop her like a hot potato when he's done taking what he wants from her. Honestly, I don't think this is worth saving. She obviously isn't even trying, and she has the gall to call you crazy. Please move on. Your baby is so young, she won't ever remember being in a 2-parent household. You won't be able to forget, and will always need to keep a check on her. Comment 2. Here's what you do. You decide whether or not you can live with her cheating on you. You decide if you want your daughter growing up thinking the resulting marriage is normal. Then you either accept that the price of being with your wife is her cheating, or you go see a lawyer and do the hard thing. Because, man, it would be a 1% chance of salvaging this if she was remorseful, but she just goes right back to it. She's not going to stop this, man. And even if she does, it will be until the next one. Now, for the update. 1 week after moving in with my parents, I got a call from my wife asking to meet at a local diner. She wanted to talk about our situation, and I reluctantly agreed. I didn't want to make any decisions until I had a better idea of what she wanted. I pulled into the diner parking lot, took a deep breath, and walked to the entrance. She was sitting in a booth, nervously tapping her fingers on the table. I could see the tension in her face. I sat down across from her, and she immediately started talking. She apologized for her behavior and insisted she wanted to work on our marriage. She said she made a terrible mistake and wanted to fix things between us. I couldn't help but feel skeptical. I remembered her actions from the past and the guy from the playgroup who had caused all this mess in the first place. It was hard to believe she was suddenly so committed to our marriage. After a few minutes of talking, she suggested going on a family outing to the zoo with our daughter. She said it would help us reconnect as a family and give us a chance to bond. I was hesitant, but eventually agreed. I thought it might be a good opportunity to see how she interacted with our daughter and gauge her sincerity. We picked up our daughter from daycare and headed to the zoo. During the car ride, my wife tried to make small talk with our daughter and get her excited about the outing. Our daughter seemed happy to see her mom and didn't seem to notice anything off. When we arrived at the zoo, my wife was overly affectionate toward our daughter. She was hugging her, holding her hand, and showering her with kisses. It almost felt like she was trying to prove her commitment to us. We walked around the zoo, checking out the animals, and our daughter was having a blast. Everything seemed perfect, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. We ran into a mutual friend at the zoo, and she casually mentioned seeing my wife's Instagram photos with that guy from the playgroup. My heart dropped. I wanted to scream at her, but I held it in. After the friend left, I confronted my wife about the pictures. She brushed it off as harmless fun and said she was just trying to make new friends. I was furious, but tried to keep my cool. I noticed she had her phone out, scrolling through social media, so I quickly snatched it away from her. Looking through her notifications, I saw messages from that guy, including some flirty comments and a recent photo she had sent him. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. She became defensive and accused me of invading her privacy. She insisted she was done with that guy and wanted to focus on our family. I was done with her excuses. I left the zoo, feeling frustrated and betrayed, and headed back to my parents' house. That evening, I got a text from her asking me to come back and talk things over. I declined, feeling it was too soon to revisit that conversation. The next day, I found out from my sister that my wife had been posting more pictures with that guy on social media, despite her claims. I decided to check her Instagram again and discovered she had blocked me from seeing her posts. I was losing my mind. I called her again, demanding an explanation for her actions. She admitted she still had feelings for the guy, but insisted she wanted to keep our family together. I didn't understand how she could have feelings for him and still want to be with me. I asked her to leave my parents' house for a few days to think things over. She reluctantly agreed, but promised to call me later that week. A few days passed, and my mom called me, worried about our daughter's behavior since my wife moved out. I visited my daughter, and it broke my heart to see her acting withdrawn and quiet. She wasn't her usual self. During a family dinner at my parents' house, I mentioned my wife's behavior, leading to a heated discussion among family members. My mom suggested I should forgive her and try to reconcile for our daughter's sake. I understood where she was coming from, but it was hard for me. After a few days of silence, my wife sent a text inviting me to a family gathering at her parents' house. I hesitated but remembered our daughter, so I agreed to go. When I arrived at the gathering, the atmosphere was tense. Everyone was aware of the ongoing issues, and it felt uncomfortable. My wife's parents asked me when we would be getting back together, putting me on the spot in front of everyone. I didn't have an answer. I decided to leave the gathering early and went home. On my way home, I got a message from my wife saying she needed space to figure out what she wanted. A few days later, I learned she had started dating that guy openly, posting pictures of them together online. It felt like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe she had moved on so quickly. I was left to pick up the pieces, and our daughter was stuck in the middle of it all. To answer a few questions, my wife had been unblocked on Instagram after the initial confrontation. However, she didn't know I could see the messages and posts sent to me from my sister. Our daughter initially didn't notice anything unusual, but her behavior changed gradually. My family had mixed opinions on my wife's actions. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.